So, as I said, today is the birthday of Tom Wiscombe, a professor at SciArc and an interesting architect. And I think it's important to also know the architects of the present. It's important to know those of the past, but it's also important to know even young architects today who are moving the world of architecture. And he's one of them. But I will show, as I said, 4 projects on which he was a project designer when he worked for Kop Himmelblau in Vienna, in Austria. So I will begin with the Dresden cinema in Germany. This was a sketch which was not done by him, was done by Wolf Prix. But he, as I said, he was the designer architect, and on the website of Kop Himmelblau, he is acknowledged as such. And all the 4 projects that I'm going to show now show him in that position. And it is a remarkable position considering that he was actually very young. This cinema in Dresden, I actually saw. I was there, I entered it. So, you know, I know the building. Out of the 4 buildings that I show today, this is a building I saw. And there is another one in Lyon, le Musée des Confluences. I think, you know, we need architecture that is indeed a kind of, you know, ambiguous. That on one hand it serves some needs, it serves so-called instrumental purpose, but on the other hand, it is mysterious. It escapes an easy reading. And I agree with him that good architecture does both. It's partially, at least, opaque. It doesn't betray its identity easily. And I would say he is right. This building in Dresden is, you know, almost a scandal, architecturally speaking, for the city. But the more I reflect on it, the more I realize that it's a beneficial scandal, because it unsettles, and maybe this is the role of art. And because today is the birthday of Tristan Tzara, one of the founders of the Dada movement, maybe it is worthy. It is worth talking about unsettling. Because this is the role of art. The art is, in a way, unsettling reality. But by doing so, it actually enhances it. So this is the building. It was built in the 90s. And I think it is an interesting building. Of course, it has a lot of glass. Of course, there is a lot of loss of energy there. But what can we do? You know, at that time, at least, there wasn't so much interest in you know, sustainability and energy loss, although I think it should have been, but it was not. Anyway, we see duality here. We see the glass prism, you know, sloping and falling, and then we see the opaque concrete walls on the left. So there is a tension between the two. It is a dynamic environment. It is an environment that tries to, as I said, unsettle you. The fact that he very young, maybe he was not even 30 when he was project designer for this cinema, it's quite something. And yes, maybe the ultimate decisions were not made by him, but by Wolf Prix and his partner Helmut. But he had on the list with the participants to the project, he is high up. And I didn't know this, but looking on Wikipedia, you know, about him, I learned that he was a project designer for these 4 projects, and 2 of the next ones are even larger and more complex than this one. Now, of course, the bourgeois and the conformist would protest. And maybe even a part of myself was protested, because yes, it is unsettling. You know, you would expect something else. You have expectations. And when art or architecture doesn't meet your expectations, you panic. But in retrospect, you reconsider, and maybe I remember when I visited it, I regretted that there were very poor details. I was having in my mind Carlos Carpa. This is a different kind of architecture. Is an architecture which does not try to comfort you through, the art of the joint or with exquisite detailing. No, it's in a way a brutal architecture, an architecture that uses a lot of zinc, a material which is not the smoothest and the warmest. And, unfortunately, and in my opinion, this is a limit of this kind of architecture, and you can see it used in the other projects as well. I, I know when I visited Le Musée des Confluences in Lyon 2 years ago, I had this feeling that actually the building lost because the materials are the same, glass, steel, and concrete, and that's it. There is nothing else. It is predictable and cold. But in terms of forms and in terms of volumes and in terms of space, these buildings are very engaging indeed. They are experiments. Even Patrick Schumacher, now who runs the office of Zaha Hadid Architects, he seems to have the need for what he calls tectonics or tectonism. In this field, I would say this approach to architecture is rather deficient. Now, the BMW Welt in Germany is the big building for this BMW. You know what BMW stands for. It's a flamboyant building for a flamboyant car maker. It is what it is. I am a little bit turned off by this flamboyance, which celebrates, in fact, what? It celebrates an expensive car, an expensive car maker. But I mean, I don't know. I mean, the social worker in me and the compassionate man in me is a little bit unhappy because this architecture pays homage to, in a way, to the ills of our time. And yes, it is glorious. Yes, it is whirling. It is a vortex. But this is not a cosmic vortex. This is a money-making machine. Yes, with a great performance as a car, but still a car. I mean, a car which needs a battery, which is artificially activated, is not alive without that either gasoline or electricity or whatever, and the fetishization of the car, to me, is dangerous. What are we actually celebrating here? I remember Steve Jobs, the founder of Apple, the Apple company, and the creative force there. Whenever he showed up at great, gatherings of people, with a new product, he introduced it as if it was God sent, as if it was some kind of a magical, totally otherworldly thing. And it was in essence an object, a dead object, an iPhone or iPad or whatever, but he presented it with such an aura, with as if, and I disagree with this, I mean, come on, the most humble blade of grass is more alive than the most sophisticated object that you create. Let's not blow it up out of proportions. But this is the ethos of capitalism, of high capitalism. I mean, look at this. You think that there is the eye of God. It's a car. It's a nice car, yes, but it's a car, and it's nothing else. If it doesn't have gas or it doesn't have electricity, it doesn't run. It's dead. It stays there like a corpse. So let's not create a myth, because in my opinion, it doesn't deserve this.
If I may interrupt you for
Pardon?
a second, if I may interrupt you just
Please.
for a second, uh, it's an icon for the original factory that was assembling engines, airplanes engines. Therefore, it's the vortex.
No, I knew this, but I don't think it's about this. It's about the melodrama, the pathos, that the love we have of objects, of high-speed cars. Wolfprix loves high-speed cars. You know, it's this belief in a progress where we have to run quicker and quicker and quicker, and if we don't have enough on Earth to run on, then we'll go to Mars. I'm very suspicious of this. You know, excessive love, you know, of the fetishization of objects, you know, man-made objects. You know, yes, it's a glorious car, but it's a car. It's nothing more than a car. And you know, this kind of building, as if this is a cathedral, the cathedral of cars. Wolfprix and Kop Himmelblau also build the cathedral of money, the headquarters for the European Central Bank. You know, I mean, you know, there is no difference any longer. I mean, you know, Chartres Cathedral was built for the unknown, for God, as they you know, believed in, as they perceived him. We build cathedrals for the car and for the bank. And you know, where is the revolutionary here? Because this is the paradox. Kop Himmelblau has a revolutionary side, is you know, wants to be, you know, considered as avant-garde, as some kind of homme revolte, you know, the rebels. But what are these rebels doing? They are building for BMW and for the European Central Bank vortexes. So in my opinion, it's a built-in contradiction here. You know, I mean, I know that this is where the money is, but doesn't the avant-gardist sell his soul by celebrating? Because that's what we look at here, a celebration, a mad celebration of a car. You know, I mean, look at this. You know, what is this melodrama for, really? Because again, these cars that might be glorious today, in 20 years will be obsolete. And this car, if it doesn't have gas or a battery, you know, electricity, is dead. So what are we celebrating here? We don't celebrate the sun. We don't celebrate God. We don't celebrate the wind. We don't celebrate cosmos. We celebrate a car, but with an emphasis which I think is a little bit, for my taste, a little bit dubious. Because what are our values, you know? An iPhone, an iPad, a car, a refrigerator, a TV. Who are our gods today? And what I see here is a temple dedicated to its majesty, the car, the god. But this god, even if it's BMW, produces pollution, and at times produces accidents, and it needs highways, it needs concrete on Earth. It's a voracious god. Yes, the building is interesting, I agree, but what is it built for? And I didn't visit this building, but I saw the museum, Le Musée de Confluence. There I had the same feeling that there is a lot of architectural turmoil, which is a little bit misleading, I think. But anyway, we'll arrive there. And the interiors are very similar. I mean, you know, this is a much larger building than the cinema in Dresden. You know, I don't know very well how to put it, but I mean, look here, look at the cars here, you know, and there are, you see, this ramp is made for the car as if God is descending from the sky towards the mortals. And really, this is the fetishization of an object. That's how I see it. with a lot of money, of course, because this is an expensive car, and this company has a lot of money. And I don't know. It's something about it that disturbs me, because it is addressing actually an elite who is buying a BMW. Yes, you can buy it second hand and it costs less. But if you are to buy a new car, to have the money for the BMW, you must have some money. So it's the same. It's the same climate of consume, 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 and produce, produce, produce. I actually think, again, I said it and I will say it again. It's celebrating the wrong gods. Yes, it is impressive, but I don't know. I mean, maybe we should talk about this. We look at this building and we look at San Carlo alle Quattro Fontane, the small church built in Rome by Borromini. You might say, wait a minute, why is God more valid to be celebrated than a BMW? Well, I'm not saying that this question is not maybe valid to an extent, I'm asking a question. Let's talk about this short presentation about this, and I would be very happy to hear your opinions. Now I'll show the Musée de Confluence, where again, in all these 4 projects, Tom Wiscombe, he was the designer architect. This building I saw in Lyon 2 years ago, and I'll show now first some pictures from the construction process. It's an interesting project. I liked it as a project. I like the plans, the sketch, the sections. I like the drama. I like the fact that it looked like a architectonic wild animal. I like complexity. I like the labyrinth. I like contortions. I like turbulence. What disturbed me when I was there, maybe the word disturb is too strong, is it was predictably the same way inside, like the cinema in Dresden, the same material. It had glass and steel and concrete. Yes, the silhouette is engaging, the volumes are engaging, the spaces are engaging, but the materials used are the same ones. And they are cold, very, very cold. On the other hand, I will show some pictures here with the objects. I shouldn't call them objects. And by the way of this, I noticed that Tom Wiscombe, he referred to a building with the word object, and I would disagree. A good building is more than an object, and it shouldn't be an object. But this is done very frequently. Rem Koolhaas also talks about a building as being an object. But from what I read from Wright and Alto and Le Corbusier and Mies, they never talk about a building being an object. I never saw this word in their writings referring to a building. But the architects of today, they use this word. And I think it's wrong. A building is more than an object. And it should be more than an object. Anyway, this is an interesting object. I don't know if Wolf Prix uses the word object. He probably doesn't. I never heard him of using this word, but Tom Wiscombe, he did. Anyway, it's a monster, no? But I like this monster. I like its sculpturalness. I like its complexity. I like its difficulties, but what turned me off when I visited it, when I entered the building, was that I didn't know. It could have been an airport, it could have been a mall, it could have been many things. On the other hand, look at the silhouette. It's interesting, yes. And I understood when Wolf Prix presented the project that they had difficulties, the architects, with the city hall, with the mayor of Lyon. The cost went to the sky and all kinds of complications. It lasted for a long time to build it, but it was built. It was built. But you see, what's the difference between this interior and the interior of the BMW Welt? There is no difference. So one is a museum, the other one is, I don't know, headquarters or showroom. So I had the same problem with Zaha Hadid when I visited her library in Vienna. Again, the space interesting, the expression outside was interesting, but the building could have been anything. Actually, it didn't say I am a library. This one also doesn't. Its turmoil maybe evokes a certain pessimism because this is rather a science museum. I mean, I like the title, Le Musée des Confluences. So it's a museum of confluences, of interrelations. It's not just about one strict domain. So it is organic. It is there is conflict within. There are contradictions. I like this. I like this kind of architecture. Again, what disappointed me was that inside was the same interior I saw in Dresden, and I probably would have seen at the BMW headquarters and also the Akron Art Museum in the United States, which we are going to see after this project. So Tom Wiscombe, whose birthday is today, he worked as the designer for this. As a young designer, he had an important position in the project, and you know, I'm actually surprised and pleased that Wolf Prix invested in him so much, you know, confidence. He was probably, as he still is, very, very knowledgeable about those softwares he tries now to break, or those tools that he mentioned in the interview that he's tempted to break. I actually like, I mean, this is during the construction. I wish these things were part of the final museum, but they are not. And not just because of the, you know, the strangeness of their forms, but because of the color. I was tired of so much grayness. You may here you finally see something red, you know, red. Yes, red. It's nice, I think, but these things are gone. They were just tools used during the construction. That's how the building is from the outside. A lot of concrete and glass and steel, and that's it. Too bad, because the forms are interesting and engaging. I really like them. Now, inside, in this case, I kind of like this excessive grayness and the fragmentation, the fragmented prisms. I think there is something ominous here. You know, I don't know if they did it consciously or willingly, but I would agree with this kind of interiors because I think they show the sad side of life, of science. All these, you know, stuffed animals, what do they show? They show the triumph of man over nature. In a way, you know, the triumph of death over life. And in this case, I think grayness is appropriate. You know, if here we had some celebratory redness, would have been inappropriate. Again, I don't know if they did it consciously, but I think the result is good in the sense that it shows the ominous side of this conquest, that the human conquered everything, animal and grass alike. And there is a certain sadness here, as opposed to other science museums. This one, because of this grayness, somehow shows the sad side of things. And again, I don't know if they did it consciously or willingly, but I perceive it as being a sad thing. You know, we humans with colored clothes and maybe reddish cheeks, we contemplate the dead bodies, these stuffed animals, which show clearly the deadly assault of man on the earth. Animals and plants and trees and sky and mountains and you name it. And look at this. I mean, look at this, you know, look at this. It's the triumph of death. that's what I see. Strangely, I have seen images of other science museums which were very, happy-go-lucky and colorful and so on. Here, I have a feeling that somehow the message that is being sent to me is different. That I don't know. Maybe I project my own, wishful thinking. It's possible, but. I actually I agree with the way these things are, with what the mode of presentation, but it saddens me where we arrived at. Now, of course, we didn't kill this animal necessarily, this one in particular, but what we see here, I mean, here this idea that everything in the world was made for the human being to contemplate, the zoos, we create zoos, we create, concentration camps, we create, we put the Native American Indians in their own reservations. Everything is about controlling, and I think we'll pay the price for this if we didn't already, if we didn't start paying that price already. Now, the last of the 4 works where he worked as a designer is this one, the Akron Art Museum in Ohio in the United States. Akron is, I don't know, I have been in Ohio. I didn't go to Akron, but Ohio is a troubled state, is a provincial state, is a state without glory, actually, although they had some interesting cities there, but there is a lot of misery, and I could tell you, in one evening a lot about what I saw in Columbus, Ohio, or Cincinnati. You won't believe it, So I don't know exactly why they built an art museum there, and I don't know why they needed European avant-garde. But okay, it was built. It is exalted. In my opinion, it is too exalted. Look at the highway. That highway has nothing in common with art. It's the highway of capitalism running quickly from one place to another to, I don't know, take care of business. The art museum is interesting, but how seriously can I take it? That thing that is floating, that cantilevered part, which is approximating in a way a plane, because this is the philosophy of Kopp Himmelblau, that architecture should fly and should be non-gravitational. I don't know. When we think about the amount of money spent for that, and where in Akron, where there are no universities. I don't know. There are no students. There are no intellectuals. There is certainly not an avant-garde. So it's kind of a paradox, because in the United States, the avant-garde is on the East Coast and on the West Coast. But strangely, the avant-garde doesn't build always in New York. They build a little bit on the West Coast, but they build in the middle of the United States, which is almost rural. So I don't know. Yes, it's an interesting building, but its rhetorics are based, I think, on something that could be questioned and could be discussed. And again, we have a lot of glass. So I see here the sun, right? Well, the sun hits this glass surface, and the effects are to be felt if you don't have a very, very strong air conditioning here. In the winter, it's cold. In the summer, it's hot. So you need air conditioning. The air conditioning has nothing to do with, I see all kinds of arrows, and yes, it looks like everything is fine. I doubt it. With this glass surface receiving straight into the chest the sun rays, this cannot be efficient energetically. I don't think so. You need air conditioning, and that air conditioning You know what that means. Otherwise, yes, the plane is gloriously invoked in the aesthetics of the building, and yes, it is nicely done, but I don't know. I think there is some but here. You know, it's in a way, what for? Again, this could have been in Lyon, or it could have been in Germany at the BMW, you know, headquarters or showroom, and it could have been in Dresden. Exactly the same. Gray and cold. So, if you want, let's talk a little bit about this because I'm curious what you think. Anyway, I'll start. So this was the Dada Manifesto from 1918, written by Tristan Tzara. By the way, the name, it's a made-up name. Tristan Tzara comes from Trist and Tzara. And, you know, talking about sadness, Tristan Tzara, I guess, is appropriately here with us. So the magic of a word, Dada, which has brought journalists to the gates of world unforeseen, is of no importance to us. To put out a manifesto, you must want ABC to fulminate against 1, 2, 3, to fly into a rage and sharpen your wings, to conquer and disseminate little ABCs and big ABCs, to sign, shout, swear, to organize prose into a form of absolute and irrefutable evidence, to prove your non plus ultra and maintain that novelty resembles life just as the latest appearance of some whore proves the essence of God. His existence was previously proved by the accordion, the landscape, the whittling word. To impose your ABC is a natural thing, hence deplorable. Everybody does it in the form of crystal bluff Madonna, monetary system, pharmaceutical product, or a bare leg advertising the ardent, sterile spring. The love of novelty is the cross of sympathy, demonstrates a naive je m'en foutisme, you know, from je m'en fout, which in English means I don't care. It is a transitory positive sign without a cause. But this need itself is obsolete. In documenting art on the basis of the supreme simplicity, novelty, we are human and true for the sake of amusement, impulsive, vibrant, to crucify boredom. At the crossroads of the lights, alert, attentively awaiting the years in the forest, I write a manifesto and I want nothing. Yet one says certain things, and in principle I am against manifestos, as I am also against principles. Half pins to measure the moral value of every phrase, too convenient. Approximation was invented by the Impressionists. I write this manifesto to show that people can perform contrary actions together while taking one fresh gulp of air. I am against action, for continuous contradiction, for affirmation too. I am neither for nor against, and I do not explain because I hate common sense. Dada means nothing. If you find it futile and don't want to waste your time on a word, that means nothing. The first thought that comes to these people is bacteriological in character, to find its etymological or at least historical or psychological origin. We see by the papers that the crew Negroes called the tail of a holy cow Dada. The cube and the mother in a certain district of I don't know what that is, are called Dada. A hobby horse, a nurse, both in Russian and Romanian, Dada. Some learned journalists regard it as an art for babies. Other holy Jesus escalating the little children of our day as a relapse into a dry and noisy and monotonous primitivism. Sensibility is not constructed on the basis of a word. All constructions converge on perfection, which is boring, the stagnant idea of a gilded swamp, a relative human product. A work of art should not be beauty in itself, but beauty, for beauty is dead. It should be neither gay nor sad, neither light nor dark, to rejoice or torture the individual by serving him the cakes of sacred aureoles or the sweets of a vaulted race through the atmospheres. A work of art is never beautiful by decree, objectively and for all. Hence, criticism is useless. It exists only subjectively for each man separately without the slightest character of universality. Does anyone think he has found the psychic base column to all mankind? The attempt of Jesus and the Bible covers with their broad benevolent wings shit, animals, days. How can one expect to put order into the chaos? The Dada Manifesto 1918 then constitutes that infinite and shapeless variation. Man, the principle love thy neighbor is a hypocrisy. Know thyself is utopian, but more acceptable, for it embraces wickedness. No pity. After the carnage, we still retain the hope of a purified mankind. I speak only of myself, since I do not wish to convince. I have no right to drag others into my river. I oblige no one to follow me, and everybody practices his art in his own way. It be knows, if be knows, if be knows, if be known, I don't know, the joy that rises like arrows to the astral layers, or that other joy that goes down into the minds of corpse, flowers, and fertile spasms. Stalactites, seek them everywhere, in managers magnified by pain, eyes white as the hairs of the angels. And so Dada was born of a need for independence, of a distrust towards unity. Those who are with us preserve their freedom. We recognize no theory. We have enough cubist and futurist academies, laboratories of formal ideas. It is the aim of art to make money and cajole that the nice bourgeois. Rhymes ring with the assonance of the currencies and the inflection slips along the line of the belly in profile. All groups of artists have arrived at this trust company, utter riding their steeds on various comets, while the door remains open to the possibility of wallowing in cushions and good things to eat. Separated and good. Cubism was born out of the simple way of looking at an object. Cézanne painted a cup 20 centimeters below his eyes. The cubists look at it from above. Others complicate appearance by making a perpendicular section and arranging it conscientiously on the side. I do not forget the creative artists and the profound laws of matter which they established once and for all. The futurist sees the same cup in movement, a succession of objects, one beside the others, and maliciously adds a few forced lines. This does not prevent the canvas from being a good or bad painting, suitable for the investment of intellectual capital. The new painter creates a world, the elements of which are also its implements, a sober, definite work without argument. The new artist protests. He no longer paints, but creates directly in stone, wood, iron, tin, boulders, locomotive organisms capable of being turned in all directions by the limpid wind of momentary sensation. All pictorial or plastic work is useless. Let it then be a monstrosity that frightens servile minds and not sweatening to decorate the refectories of animals in human costume, illustrating the sad fable of mankind. Philosophy is the question. From which side should we look at life, God, the idea, or other phenomena? Everything one looks at is false. I do not consider the relative result more important than the choice between cake and cherries after dinner. The system of quickly looking at the other side of a thing in order to impose your opinion indirectly is called dialectics. In other words, haggling over the spirit of fried potatoes while dancing method around it. If I cry out, ideal, 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 knowledge, 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 boom, 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 I have given a pretty faithful version of progress, law, morality, and all the other fine qualities that various highly intelligent men have discussed in so many books. only to conclude that after all, everyone dances to his own personal boom boom, and that the writer is entitled to his. Tzara, the Dada Manifesto, boom boom, the satisfaction of pathological curiosity, a private bell for inexplainable needs. Sorry, I had to take care of some things on the screen. So the satisfaction of pathological curiosity, a private bell for inexplainable needs, a bath, pecuniary difficulties, a stomach with repercussions in tile. The authority of the mystic wand formulated as the bouquet of a phantom orchestra made up of silent fiddle bows, greased with filters made of chicken manure. With the blue eye glasses of an angel, they have excavated the inner life for Adim's, I don't know Adim's, worth of unanimous gratitude. If all of them are right, and if all pills are pink pills, let us try for once not to be right. Some people think they can explain rationally by thought what they think, but that is extremely relative. Psychoanalysis is a dangerous disease. It puts to sleep the anti-objective impulses of man and systematizes the bourgeoisie. There is no ultimate truth. The dialectic is an amusing mechanism which guides us in a banal kind of way to the opinions we had in the first place. Does anyone think that by a minute refinement of logic, he had demonstrated the truth and established the correctness of these opinions? Logic imprisoned by the senses is an organic disease. To this element, philosophers always like to add the power of observation. But actually, this magnificent quality of the mind is the proof of its impotence. We observe, we regard from one or more points of view, we choose them among the millions that exist. Experience is also a product of chance and individual faculties. Science disgusts me as soon as it becomes a speculative system, loses its character of utility that is so useless, but it is at least individual. I detest greasy objectivity and harmony, the science that finds everything in order. Carry on, my children, humanity. Science says we are the servants of nature. Everything is in order. Make love and bash your brains in. Carry on, my children, humanity, kind bourgeois and journalist virgins, slam, I don't know what that is, against systems. The most acceptable system is on principle to have none. To complete oneself, to perfect oneself in one's own littleness, to fill the vessel with one's individuality, to have the courage to fight for and against thought. The mystery of bread, the sudden burst of an infernal propeller into economic lilies, active simplicity, inability to distinguish between degrees of clarity, to lick the penumbra and float in the big mouth filled with honey and excrement. Measured by the scale of eternity, all activity is vain. If we allow thought to engage in an adventure, the result of which would be infinitely grotesque, and add significantly to our knowledge of human impotence. But supposing life to be a poor farce without aim or initial parturition, and because we think it is our duty to extricate ourselves as fresh and clean as washed chrysanthemums, we have proclaimed as the sole basis for agreement, art. It is not as important as we, mercenaries of the spirit, have been proclaiming for centuries. Art afflicts no one, and those who manage to take an interest in it will harvest caresses and a fine opportunity to populate the country with their conversation. Art is a private affair. The artist produces it for himself. An intelligible work is the product of a journalist, and because of this moment, it strikes my fancy to combine this monstrosity with oil paints. A paper tube simulating the metal that is automatically pressed and poured hatred, cowardice, villainly. The artist, the poet, rejoice at the venom of the masses condensed into a section chief of this industry. He is happy to be insulted. It is a proof of his immutability. When a writer or artist is praised by the newspapers, it is a proof of the intelligibility of his work. Wretched lining of a coat for public use, tatters covering brutality, peace contributing to the warmth of an animal brooding vile instincts, flabby, insipid flesh reproducing with the help of typographical microbes. We have thrown out the cry baby in us. Any infiltration kind is candid, I don't know, sorry, it's a little bit long, but since I started, I will end it, is candid diarrhea. To encourage this act is to digest it. What we need is works that are strong, straight, precise, and forever beyond understanding. Logic is a complication. Logic is always wrong. It draws the threads of notions, words in their formal exterior towards illusory ends and centers. Its chains kill. It is an enormous centipede stifling independence. Married to logic, art would live in incest, swallowing, engulfing its own tail, still part of its own body, fornicating within itself, and passion would become a nightmare tarred with Protestantism, a monument, a heap of ponderous grey entrails. But the suppleness, enthusiasm, even the joy of injustice, this little truth which we practice innocently and which makes it beautiful. It's beautiful. We are subtle and our fingers are malleable and slippery as the branches of that sinuous, almost liquid plant. It defines our soul, say the cynics. That too is a point of view, but all flowers are not sacred, fortunately, and the divine thing in us is to call the anti-human action. I am speaking of a paper flower for the buttonholes of the gentlemen who frequent the ball of masked life, the kitchen of grace, white cousins, he or fat, I don't know. They traffic with whatever we have selected. The contradiction and unity of poles in a single toss can be the truth. If one absolutely insists on uttering this platitude, the appendix of a libidinous, malodorous morality. Morality creates atrophy, like every plague produced by intelligence. The control of morality and logic has inflicted us with impassivity in the presence of policemen who are the cause of slavery, putrid rats infecting the bowels of the bourgeoisie, which have infected the only luminous clean corridors of glass that remain open to artists. Let each man proclaim there is a great negative work of destruction to be accomplished. We must sweep and clean, affirm the cleanness of the individual after the state of madness, aggressive, complete madness of a world abandoned to the hands of bandits who rend one another and destroy the centuries. Without aim or design, without organization, indomitable madness, decomposition. Those who are strong in words or force will survive, for they are quick in defense. The agility of limbs and sentiments flames on their faceted flanks. Morality has determined charity and pity, two balls of fat that have grown like elephants, like planets, and are called good. There is nothing good about them. Goodness is lucid, clear, and decided, pitiless towards compromise and politics. Morality is an injection of chocolate into the veins of all men. This task is not ordered by a supernatural force, but by the trust of idea brokers and grasping academicians. Sentimentality, at the sight of a group of men quarreling and bored, they invented the calendar and the medicament wisdom. With the sticking of labels, the battle of the philosophers was set off. Mercantilism, scales, meticulous and petty measures. And for the second time, it was understood that pity is a sentiment like diarrhea in relation to the disgust that destroys health, a fool attempt by carrion corpses to compromise the sun. I proclaim the opposition of all cosmic faculties to this gonorrhea of a putrid sun issued from the factories of philosophical thought. I proclaim bitter struggle with all the weapons of Dadaist disgust, every product of disgust capable of becoming a negation of the family is Dada. A protest with a fist of its whole being engaged in destructive action. Dada. Knowledge of all the means rejected up until now by the shamefaced sex of comfortable compromise and good manners. Dada. Abolition of logic, which is the dance of those impotent to create. Dada. Of every social hierarchy and equation set up for the sake of values by our valets. Dada. Every object, all objects, sentiments, obscurities, apparitions, and the precise clash of parallel lines are weapons for the fight. Dada. Abolition of memory. Dada. Abolition of archaeology. Dada. Abolition of prophets. Dada. Abolition of the future. Dada. Absolute and unquestionable faith in every god that is the immediate product of spontaneity. Dada. Elegant and unprejudiced leap from an harmony to the other sphere, trajectory of a word tossed like a screeching phonograph record. To respect all individuals in their folly of the moment, whether it be serious, fearful, timid, ardent, vigorous, determined, enthusiastic, to divest one's church of every useless, cumbersome accessory, to spit out disagreeable or amorous ideas like a luminous waterfall, or coddle them, with the extreme satisfaction that it doesn't matter in the least, with the same intensity in the thicket of coarse soul pure, of insects for blood well born, and gilded with bodies of archangels. Freedom, Dada, 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 a roaring of tense colors, an interlacing of opposites and all contradictions, of all contradictions, grotesque inconsistencies, life. That's it. Sorry for the sorry for the long text, and I'm surprised.